The first one's Republicans.
Confused.
Democrats.
Confused.
Climate change or global warming.
For real.
Donald Trump.
A bozo.
Hillary Clinton.
She's that gal who tried so hard in school and just was never popular and is still trying really hard and is still not going to be popular. If the Middle East didn't have oil and didn't have Israel, it would be just like Africa.
Black people.
Perhaps the most interesting public policy dilemma in the United States. I am a libertarian, so I approach every question about what's government's role with a sort of a libertarian sense, which is if the government does nothing, where is that going to leave things?
Right.
And so, for instance, if the government didn't build roads and didn't put in stoplights. Anyway, so what's government supposed to do? I prefer for government, in the sports analogy, to at all times sort of be the rule maker and the ref, and to stay off the court. So for instance, I don't think government needs to be in the public education business. I think education is a really important issue. I believe in free education, free K through 12 education. But it doesn't mean that it has to, and that the only way that is going to happen is for money to be redistributed by government from people who have surplus money to people who need money to pay for their kids to go to school. But I'd much rather have government redistributing cash and then letting families decide where their kids go to school. So I believe in free public education in the sense of state paid for. But I don't believe that schools should be government institutions run by the government, highly unionized, yada, yada, yada. Depending on where you live, and if you're a middle class family, there's one public school you can go to. And I think that's by and large a bad thing. And vouchers are the way to get at that. The teachers' unions have created the conversation around either you're for public education or you're not. And Republicans aren't, and they don't care about kids, and Democrats are, and they do. And I just think that's completely, the issue is completely misrepresented. I'm all for public education. I'm all for government subsidized education. I just don't believe in public schools, in the sense of traditional public schools run by teachers union, by unionized workforces. And I think Democrats are on, when I say so, I think the sort of Democratic Party is on the wrong side of history, in the same way that people who thought civil rights didn't matter were wrong. Or it turns out that gay rights matter. They were wrong, right? And we find out over time, gee, that was really kind of that guy with the water cannons in Mississippi, that was wrong. Look, government's a fact of life. We're not going to get rid of it. And so each of us, particularly those of us who are gifted, or what's the right word? But anyway, those of us who life has been good to, we're well educated, we're well traveled. If we don't give back, how's it ever going to work? But the Electoral College is obviously undemocratic. And it renders, I think, in current America, something like 40 of our 50 states irrelevant in the campaign process. And so that's bad. There's no ad spend in the 4 biggest states in the country, right? Illinois, California, New York, and Texas are all safe states. It would unleash a whole series of crazy things if we got rid of it, but it's inherently evil and wrong. I think that it's important for the sort of health of our democracy that people who are giving money are disclosed as such, that they're giving money. I don't think there should be limits. Muhammad is born 700 years after Christ. And my own take is that we're kind of in the early stages of what I'll call the Muslim Reformation, where these different branches of Islam are having to figure out how to deal with each other and either stop killing each other or keep killing each other. And we Christians killed each other for hundreds of years over our sects, S-E-C-T, right? And we somehow look at them and say, oh, this is so barbaric. Well, we did the same thing. We just did it 300 years ago. And so I hate to be sanguine about this, but it feels to me like we're in for 100 years war. In America, what's happened is that our institutions, many of them, have grown so large, and our country is so big, and this notion of accountability is adrift, lost, not clear. And so when you have somebody running the VA who really isn't accountable, there's no board of directors, I mean, or whatever it is. Why is the UCLA Medical Center so successful? It's accountable, right? It's accountable to its donors, it's accountable to the institution. Its patients could go to SC and Children's Hospital if they want to. I mean, so it's a whole bunch of things. But to me, accountability is what exists in Denmark and in Singapore and exists, sadly, to a lesser degree here. And the reason people sneak into this country is because it's really expensive and really hard to come here legally. That's a big reason, because we've created this enormous regulatory overlay and prioritized the kind of people that we don't really need and haven't prioritized the people that we do need. Number one for me would be getting rid of the corporate income tax, because I'm now a capitalist, right? I have capital, I want to deploy it, I'm actively involved as a venture capitalist, funding startup companies or companies that are a year old. And I look at the risk reward of doing that, and I invest X dollars in this company, and first of all, you spend a huge amount of time in the beginning thinking about, well, gee, how should we structure the company to minimize our taxes at the corporate level, and yada, yada, yada. Put all that aside. So now you've created this company in California, and lo and behold, the company makes $100. So it pays the state of California $35, and now it's got 65 left, and then it pays the $65 to its owners. And if its owners are, individuals who, like me, who have a 50% tax rate, then so at the end of the day, we've started this company, and 67% of the profits go to the government, and only a third goes to the guys who actually took the risk. It's insane. It's just completely and totally insane. Imagine a world, this is kind of one of these fun things, imagine a world where there were no deductions, right? Because the government took a completely hands-off attitude and just said income is income, and there's no charitable contribution, there's no mortgage deduction. What else would be missing? Like, what would be missing is all the lobbyists in Washington. So when people, all of them. So if you decide that we want to have a simplified tax code, then all those people are against you. All this fun talk, whether it was from Mitt Romney 4 years ago or you with your pals at the bar about, hey, well, we really need a simplified tax code. Cool, but a real big mountain to climb over, because what you're saying is all these lobbyists and all these congressmen who basically have a great deal right now, that's going to change. We, Americans, because we disdain government. It goes back to Hamilton and Jefferson. It literally goes back to our founding fathers and our national schizophrenia about the role of government in our life. And too much power, Mr. Hamilton, Mr. Jefferson, the farmer knows best. That stuff is really, quite frankly, still at the root, of what people are arguing about. And so the British and most Europeans and the Singaporeans accept that government, they're all Hamiltonians. At the end of the day, they see government as a force for good, and that the best and brightest should go there and should be held accountable. And we have this thing that the Jeffersonian in all of us sort of says, no, Cincinnatus is our hero, right? Leave me alone. Let the decisions be left to the individual. So what I would wish upon my Republicans is that they would be a little more mindful about owning up to the fact that we care about people. That we care about things like healthcare and education. We're a party that has different means to achieving what we hope is a shared vision with our Democratic friends. And what I would say to my Democratic friends, if I could change one thing, is that if you stop being so flippant sanctimonious. Now they think that because they win and they care, they can then they have the unique and only correct way to say, well, how are we going to address that social problem? And they're wrong about that. I think Republicans need to do a better job of articulating their vision of what a safe and healthy world looks like. And Democrats need to do a better job of thinking about what the alternative means are to delivering those social goods other than through more government workers. So you asked me before about magic wands and things like that. If I could have a magic bit of technology, it would enable anybody to speak to anybody. We'd all be fluent in every language we needed to be in. The ability to communicate, like literally just to talk to someone, is transformative. I think marijuana is less dangerous than alcohol. As a father of 5 daughters, I never hesitate to point out that you have 2 fraternities at college. One of them is the pot house and one of them is the drinking house. Now, where's your daughter going to get raped? Right. Where's the kid going to drive a car into a building? Where's violent crime going to happen? I mean, so to sort of talk about marijuana in a society that's going to not have prohibition, that's going to allow alcohol, I don't see how we don't allow marijuana. Most people who have guns, like me, I have guns, are fine with background checks. Do I think it's foolish to incarcerate people for nonviolent crimes? I do think that's foolish, right? Do most Americans know that the largest single donor to the 3 strikes policy in the state of California was the state of California prison unions? You know, that sometimes what happens is we get fooled and we get told, well, this is about crime. 3 strikes is not about making the country safer. It's not about making the country safer. It's not about Old Testament retribution. It's about union jobs. My sort of pet interest is around financial literacy. If I had $1 gazillion and sort of could create my version of the Gates Foundation, it would be around civic literacy. That people need to know, for instance, gee, what does the government spend your money on? Not like to the penny, but just like, let's talk about broad categories. You can't listen to a politician. You can't make an informed decision about, am I a Democrat or am I a Republican? I think, when we talk about tax policy in the United States or whether the government spends too much or all those kinds of things, if everybody that they're speaking to has no literacy around these issues, then how can they have informed opinions? And I think the federal government, every year, when it sends you your equivalent of your 1040, that the federal government, that the President of the United States should have to write an annual report. And it says sales are up, expenses are down. It's got glossy pictures and it tells the story. This is what we took in, this is what we sent out. And these are the things that we did well this year, these are the things that we'd like to work a little harder on next year. That whole annual report on paper, 10 pages, has to do the following things, certain pie charts, spending. That would be my one fun thing to do.
Love it. Absolutely love it.